Hello, this is David Crowell from Mortgage Network, and I am bringing you Money Matters. Today we're going to talk about several of the ongoing major pieces of economic news, with an emphasis on the local real estate market and the impact of rising rates on that market. So first, I'd like to start off with just a review of some of the major economic developments over the last week. Today is, we're taping today, March 16th. It's a significant day. The Ides of March were yesterday, March 15th, which is also the day on which Julius Caesar was assassinated. The Ides of March have come forward through the Romans to present day as a particularly anxiety-producing period. The Ides are the 13th to the 17th of March, and it's an anxiety-producing period when grand, huge, awful events take place. Back in the time of the Romans, that was also the Ides of March were the period when traditionally debts were settled, debts personal and debts financial. So if you're going to even the score with somebody, you would do it in the Ides of March, and that's what happened to Julius Caesar. So we're right in the middle of the Ides of March right now, and we've made it through the first. We've made it through the first 4 days of the Ides. We've got one to go, and hopefully nothing bad happens. A week ago, and 2 weeks ago, and then a week ago on the show, I talked at great length about the tariffs that were being imposed by the Trump administration. Now, just a week later, somewhat characteristic of the Trump administration, it's highly questionable whether those tariffs will in fact be imposed, which nations will be cut out of those tariffs, which nations will be left in, and whether or not those tariffs will ever come to pass in any realistic way. The prospect of the tariffs and the prospect of a trade war coming out of those tariffs, in other words, other countries retaliating with tariffs against U.S. goods, is a very real prospect, and it looks like that whole idea is slowing down a bit. That's number one. Number two, two of the countries that would be hugely impacted by the tariffs are, of course, Canada and Mexico, who are, for all intents and purposes, open border trading partners through the NAFTA agreement, trade agreement. And there is tremendous pushback by both Mexico and Canada against any change either to NAFTA or against any U.S.-led tariff impositions. So likelihood there also is very small that there'll be any tariffs imposed on Mexico or Canada. So huge kerfuffle, huge uproar, dying down now only a week later, probably not going to long-term amount to much. Next big item in the news is the continued resilience and growth in the U.S. economy. We've just passed the 8th birthday, headed into the 9th year of a U.S. recovery. That's one of the longest recoveries in the last 60 or 70 years. I think it's headed for being the longest recovery. The pressures for a slowdown in the economy and the pressures for the economy to to take a dip, to go into a modest or slight recession. Those pressures are increasing. Now, there's no signal at the moment that that will in fact happen, but the pressure, the pressure on the economy to slow down and to dip into recession is increasing. We have a 100% effective employment rate of qualified employees. We have full employment in the United States right now. That adds pressure to inflation. We have a de facto stimulus, huge stimulus entering the economy in the fact of in the tax cut that has been put in place. So that's hundreds of billions of dollars flowing on an annual basis, $1.5 trillion flowing into the economy from the tax cut. That's inflationary. The Federal Reserve is countering that inflation by putting the brakes on with proposed 3 interest rate increases this year. So that's counter-inflationary, but that's precisely for the impact of slowing the economy down. So the likelihood is increasing of a slowdown in the economy. Second half of 2018, the economy, the Fed is going to put the brakes on more and more to keep the economy from superheating and to keep inflation from taking off. Just this morning, today is March 16th, just this morning, industrial output hit yet another record. So we are really headed into, I think the right word would be volatile times, volatility in the market. You see that, you see the swings in the market really quite significant swings in the market within a range. And what that signals is that investors are very much divided at this point. Market's up 200, 300 points one day, down 200, 300 points the next day. Market is more and more divided, optimism versus pessimism, and all the indicators are that we have to be coming near the end of this long expansion and bull market. So, having said that, the flip side of the coin is the bond market. The bond market is traditionally, this is the bonds as opposed to equities. The bond market traditionally is the place for safe money, safe return, guaranteed returns, AAA bonds like mortgage-backed securities and U.S. Treasuries guarantee a rate of return over a specified period of time. And bonds are trading off a bit, so interest rates are creeping up a bit, and that's another whole story. There is a likelihood that the bond market, the U.S. bond market, will become will continue to be an extremely attractive place for massive amounts of capital from around the world. The entire trade deficit with China is reinvested by China, or virtually the entire trade deficit with China is reinvested by China in U.S. Treasuries. So the whole thing is that whole economic model is a circular one, a self-fulfilling one. There is no other place for the Chinese to put the money other than into the U.S. Treasury market. So it does appear that even though the economy is heating up and even though inflation is heating up, that the bond market will remain pretty stable. I'm going to explain in the second half of the show where the interest rates are going and what the impact is most likely to be on our local real estate market. Hold on, don't go away. We'll see you in a minute for the second half of the show.